You make the coffee the way she likes it before you remember she's already gone. This is the version of yourself you've become without noticing. A man who stalks the brand she prefers, who bought the mug without the chip on the rim for her and kept the broken one for himself, who wakes up and moves through the kitchen filling in her shape before registering her absence. The apartment smells faintly of her, that specific thing she wears. Not perfume exactly, more like the idea of perfume, clean and cool and slightly out of reach. You stand there with 2 cups of coffee going cold, and outside the window the city is doing its gray Tuesday morning thing, indifferent to the fact that you are 31 years old and have arranged your entire nervous system around a woman who leaves before dawn. The pen is on the counter. She left it 3 weeks ago. You've been using it to write grocery lists, phone numbers, the occasional note to yourself on a takeout menu. It's a good pen, smooth, heavier than it looks, the kind that costs more than a pen needs to cost. You haven't thought about returning it. You've not thought about why you haven't thought about returning it. You pour the second coffee down the drain and go get ready for work. She found you 6 months before this at an event you hadn't wanted to attend, a work function in a catering hall in the financial district that smelled of recirculated air and the particular desperation of people trying to seem more important than they are. You were sitting at a round table of 8, eating something on a small plate that you couldn't have named, when she sat down across from you. No name tag, no colleague beside her, no obvious reason for being there. She sat down and looked at you, and the room, all the noise and motion and professional performance of it, simply stopped existing. She spoke only to you for 2 hours. She asked about the scar on your left hand before you'd told her your last name. A kitchen accident 3 years earlier, a knife in a moment of inattention, 4 stitches at an urgent care in Midtown. At the time you felt it as intimacy, the way she'd noticed something small and specific about you before you'd offered her anything. You drove home that night reconstructing the conversation, every turn of it, the way she'd leaned forward when you said something she found interesting, the way her attention had a quality of precision to it, like a beam rather than a flood. She paid for the wine, a bottle that cost $180, which she ordered without consulting you, and which you were too off balance to question. You thought about her for 4 days before she texted you. You had been sure she would. What follows is the way these things go, or so you believe at the time. She calls at 11 p.m. and you come. She cancels plans without apology and you tell her it's fine, and mean it because the relief of her showing up at all outweighs whatever you'd had scheduled. She meets your friends once by way a dinner in March, 6 of you at a restaurant in the West Village, and she is pleasant and attentive and asks the right questions and remembers names. And afterward, your friends tell you she's incredible, that you seem different around her, lighter. After that dinner, she never asks about them again. You don't notice this until much later, and when you do, you will tell yourself it was just her way, that she was a private person, that she had her own life and her own world, and this was what it looked like to be with someone fully formed. You have never seen her apartment. You've been with her for 4 months and you don't know where she lives. You raised this once, gently, on a Sunday afternoon when the light was doing something golden through your windows and you felt safe enough to say it. She smiled and told you she'd take you when the time was right, and something about her voice when she said it, calm, certain, as if the timeline was a fact and not a promise, made you feel that this was reasonable, that she was someone who moved on her own schedule and you were lucky to be on it at all. Her work is some form of organizational consulting. The explanation she gave you is clear enough to not invite follow-up questions, which you will eventually recognize as a precision in itself. She has no visible social media. You searched early on, the way everyone does, and told yourself you were just curious. Her clothes are expensive in the way of things that don't need to announce themselves. She carries a phone she rarely looks at in your presence, which you interpreted as respect for your time together, and which was also that. Over the months, her items appeared in your apartment one at a time. A second toothbrush, a specific brand of loose leaf tea on the shelf, a key she gave you that didn't correspond to any lock you ever encountered. You kept all of it. You kept all of it the way you kept the pen, without examining the keeping. The Sunday she stays through the whole night, you wake up and find her in your kitchen in the early dark, and something stops in your chest for a moment. Not fear, not quite. More like the sensation of a room coming into focus. She is seated at your table, reading something on her phone, and she doesn't hear you come in, or she does and simply doesn't react. And when she looks up, her expression takes a half second to arrange itself into warmth. You will file this half second somewhere. You will not look for a long time. She's made the tea she prefers. It's steeping in a mug on the counter. It is 7:12 in the morning, which means she's been awake for a while. She picks up the pen. It's just there on the table where you left it. Her pen, your pen now, the whole question of ownership blurred, and turns it once between her fingers and sets it down. Her face has something private in it for just a moment. Not quite satisfaction. Something quieter than that. 3 weeks later, she cancels whatever she has on a Wednesday and spends the day with you. The whole day, unhurried, without her phone in her hand. You walk for miles through the city in November cold, and she asks about your childhood, your parents, whether you have siblings, what you wanted to be when you were 8. She tells you about her own family in careful fragments that feel like confidence, like being let in. By the time you stop at a bakery in the early afternoon, she is asking about your mother's health, about whether you've ever considered moving back closer to home, and the conversation feels deeper than anything you've had with anyone in years. She doesn't eat anything at the bakery, just watches you eat a cheese Danish with an expression you would call fond. You would be close. You walk 4.3 miles according to your phone. When you get back to your neighborhood, the light is going, and you're tired in the good way, and you stand outside your building for a few minutes in the cold just talking, neither of you ready to stop. At some point, you pass a hospital. A mid-sized building on a side street, nothing remarkable about it, its windows lit from inside against the darkening afternoon. She glances at it, not at the entrance, not at a sign, just at the building itself. Her step doesn't slow. You register this as nothing because there is nothing to register. A building, a glance. The conversation continues. You find out where she lives on a Thursday evening in November when she finally takes you there. 12th floor of a building in a neighborhood that is neither flashy nor austere, something more precisely calibrated than either. The building's lobby is quiet. The elevator smells of something neutral and expensive. Her apartment is 1,800 square feet of complete control. Not cleanliness exactly, though it is clean. More the sense of a space in which nothing has been left to chance. Everything placed, nothing accumulated, no evidence of a life that spills over its own edges. No photographs on the walls, no books with cracked spines, no dishes in the drying rack. A kitchen that looks as though it has never produced steam or mess or the smell of something burning. There is a second bedroom at the end of the hall, door open, and you glance in as she leads you past it. Nothing inside. Just hardwood floor and the last gray light of afternoon coming through a south-facing window. You feel something at the edge of your attention and then it slides away. She makes tea. The mug she hands you is new, slightly wrong against the rest of the kitchen, the only thing in the apartment that suggests recent acquisition and deliberate intention. As you hold it and look around her living room, your eye goes to the desk in the corner. There's a single folder on it, a manila tab projector, and the label on the tab reads your first initial and your last name. You are standing 10 feet away and you can read it clearly. You look at it for a breath and a half and then you look somewhere else. Insurance paperwork, you think. A lease reference. Something mundane. You do not mention it. You drink your tea and the apartment is quiet, and she stands in the kitchen doorway, watching you with that particular attention. And you think about how lucky you are, which is the oldest story you know. The Sunday she comes out of the bathroom with the test, it is raining. You hear her in there for a while, long enough that you get up from the couch, long enough that you stand in the hallway for a moment outside the closed door, long enough that you almost knock. You don't. You go back to the couch. 5 minutes later, she walks out and she is carrying it in one hand, loose and unhurried, not brandishing it or hiding it, just holding it the way you'd carry a folded piece of paper across a room. She sets it on the kitchen table between you. She does not look frightened. She does not look surprised. She looks at you the way she always looks at you. The test is a clear blue digital, and the word on the small screen is pregnant in clean, blocky letters. Not a line, not ambiguity, a word. She bought the kind that gives you a word. You look at it, and then you look at her, and your nervous system does something with no name. Fear and joy arriving at the same moment from different directions, canceling each other out, and then both surging back at double strength. And somewhere in the middle of it, you reach for her hand, and she lets you take it. She says, "I thought you should know." Not, "I don't know what to do." Not, "What do you think we should do?" "I thought you should know." as if the information needed to be transferred and has now been transferred. You hear this. You hold her hand, and you hear this, and you file it somewhere you will not look. In the days that follow, you try to make the fact of it your own. You call your mother from a bench in the park near your building because you cannot be still inside, and you cannot explain why you're calling, so you say nothing, just let her talk about her garden, and the neighbor's dog, and a book she's reading, and you say, and I know, and the sound of her voice is enough. You go to a bookstore on a Saturday afternoon and stand in the parenting section for 20 minutes holding a book called The First 40 Weeks. It's spine glossy and unbroken. You read the same paragraph 4 times. You put the book back. You text Makima 3 times across 2 days. She responds to one of them 4 hours after you sent it. I know, we'll talk soon. The book costs $24.99. You remember this. You do not buy it. You go home and look up the same information online at 1 a.m. Instead, sitting at your kitchen table in the specific silence of a city night, the ultrasound photograph that doesn't exist yet somehow already present in the room with you. The idea of it, the gravitational fact of it, pulling everything toward a point that has not arrived. She schedules the first appointment herself. She texts you the address the morning of, the way you'd text someone the address of a restaurant. You meet her outside the clinic at 8:45 a.m. on a cold Tuesday in November, and she is already there when you arrive, which means she came early, which means she was standing outside in the cold for some amount of time before you appeared. The clinic is on a side street with a broken streetlight that buzzes and clicks in the wind. Inside, the receptionist knows her name without being told. The room where they do it is small and warm and smells of that particular antiseptic warmth of medical spaces. You sit in the chair beside the table. The technician moves the wand and the image assembles itself on the monitor. Gray, grainy, barely legible, a small form at the center of a dark field, and then the flicker. The heartbeat. 162 beats per minute, the technician says. Gestational age 9 weeks and 4 days. You cry. Not loudly, not dramatically. Your eyes simply fill and you don't stop them. Because there is no stopping them. Because the thing on the screen is real. In a way, nothing in this entire situation has been real yet. A fact that belongs to the universe rather than to either of you. A heartbeat that is indifferent to how it got there. You sit there with tears running quietly down your face and you look at the screen, and the thing you feel is enormous and true. She watches you from the other side of the table. Her expression is genuinely tender. You will think about this later, whether it was performed or real, and the answer you'll arrive at is that it was both, and that both can be true, and that this is the most complicated thing about her. She says, "You're going to be good at this." The technician prints the photograph. It comes out of the machine warm, 3.5 by 4 inches, slightly glossy. She takes it before you do. She holds it for a moment, not studying it, just holding it. And then she passes it to you. Her fingerprints are on it when you receive it. You carry it home in your coat pocket. That night, you set it on the kitchen table under the kitchen light and look at it for a long time. The pen is on the counter beside it, both of them there, the pen and the photograph. In the same frame for the first time. You pick up the pen without thinking, and then hold it without using it, and then set it back down. Outside, rain has started. You sit at the table, and the small gray form on the photograph is 162 beats per minute, and you do not need to look at it to see it. 2 weeks later, she makes dinner. This is the detail that should stop you, but doesn't, not right away. In 6 months, she has never cooked anything, has never indicated that she cooked, and now she is standing in her kitchen in an apron when you arrive. And the apartment smells of garlic and something simmering. And she makes the specific pasta you mentioned once, in passing, on the phone, 4 months ago. Your mother's recipe. Pasta e fagioli, the white beans, and the small tubes. The way your mother makes it with the rosemary sprig that goes in whole and comes out at the end. You mentioned it on the phone in passing. She remembered it. She made it. It is excellent. During dinner, she mentions, without preamble or prelude, that she has already spoken to her organization's legal team about parental leave. She mentions a timeline for converting the second bedroom. She mentions a pediatrician in the neighborhood, one she describes as excellent, whose waitlist she has already joined, and she says it the way you'd say, "I already picked up milk." An errand completed, a thing handled. None of this is framed as discussion, it is framed as information. You register the cold. Not alarm, not yet. More like a drop in temperature behind the sternum, the way a room gets slightly colder when a window opens somewhere else in the building. You keep eating. The pasta is perfect. On the desk across the room, the ultrasound photograph is framed. She has a copy, in a thin black frame, positioned where the folder used to be. The folder is gone. The timeline she mentioned, you understand as you lie awake that night back in your own apartment, is not consistent with when you took the test together. The parental leave conversation, the pediatrician waitlist, these things take time to initiate. Some of them take weeks. You lie on your back in the dark and do the arithmetic slowly, the way you'd touch something to find out if it's hot. You let the numbers arrange themselves, then you reroute around them, which takes less time than you think it should. The conversation you finally have is on a Saturday afternoon in December. She is at your kitchen table. This happens more now, her being in your apartment in the daytime, a new thing that appeared without announcement. And you sit across from her and you ask her directly, not angrily, not with accusation shaping your voice. You ask it the way you'd ask something you've been organizing for a while, quietly and carefully. Was this planned? She doesn't answer immediately. She looks at you across the table with that full attention of hers, and the apartment around you is quiet in the specific way of Saturday afternoons, and then she says, "What would change if it was?" You sit with this. The question is not a deflection. You understand this immediately. A deflection would be saying something defensive or explanatory, something that moves the conversation somewhere else. This doesn't move it anywhere. This is the question itself, delivered with the steadiness of someone who has held it for a long time, who has known it was coming, and has had time to decide that it is the honest answer to your honest question. She is not asking rhetorically. She is asking because she wants to know what you'll say, because she has calculated what you'll say, and she wants to be right. And you sit there and search for the answer, and you find that you don't have one. Not really. The love is real. You know the love is real because you've tried to locate its edges and you can't find them. The child is real. 162 beats per minute, 9 weeks and 4 days. The warm, glossy photograph on your counter with her fingerprints on it. Those things do not become less true in the face of the truth. You understand sitting there with her looking at you across your own kitchen table in the December quiet that she knew this. She knew it before she knew you because she studied you before she chose you. And what she found in you was a man who would not be able to answer this question with anything that changed things. She built this around that specific knowledge. And you still can't find where the love ends. You say, nothing, probably. She nods once, the way someone nods when they receive a number they expected. She does not look triumphant. She does not look relieved. She looks at you with that same tenderness that is also something else. And you think of the folder with your name on the tab, the hospital she glanced at without slowing, the scar on your hand she knew about before you'd told her your last name. You think about the morning she stayed, the half second it took her face to arrange itself. You think about the pen. You leave her apartment after and walk home. It's 2 miles and you don't take out your phone. The city does what cities do in December. The lights are going up on the storefronts. There's a smell of roasting nuts from a cart on the corner. Someone's dog is sitting outside a coffee shop with the resigned patience of an animal who has made peace with waiting. You walk through all of it slowly and you are not processing betrayal, which is what surprises you. You expected to find betrayal when you finally looked directly at this, the way you expect to find pain when you press a bruise. But what you find instead is something more like the sensation of a room coming into full light. You've been inside it the whole time. You just couldn't see the dimensions. She chose you. Not arbitrarily. Not as a vessel for a plan that could have involved anyone. She studied you specifically, your scar, your mother's recipe, the way you cry at ultrasounds, the answer you'd give to the question what would change. And she decided, with the full force of whoever she is, that you were what she wanted. The structure was hers. The architecture was hers. The folder with your name on the tab, the scar she memorized before you met, the pen she left on your counter like a thread she knew you'd hold on to. But the child's heartbeat is not architecture. The way your eyes filled in that small warm room is not a calculated outcome. Love, in your experience of it, does not feel like the things people design. It feels like exactly this, like something you would never have chosen because you would never have believed you deserved it, arriving anyway, from a direction you weren't watching. Halfway home, you stop in front of a hospital. A mid-sized building on a side street, nothing remarkable. Windows lit from inside against the December dark. You stand there for a moment and look at it the way she looked at it on the walk months ago, the day she asked you about your childhood and your mother and what you wanted to be when you were 8. You understand. Standing here, what she was looking at. She was looking at what came next. She was already there. You stand in the cold in front of the lit windows and you think about the empty second bedroom with the southern light, the pediatrician whose waitlist she joined, the timeline she is already living inside. You think about your mother's voice on the phone, the familiar warmth of it, the safety. You think about a child who will have her precision and might have your tendency to cry at things that are too true, and this thought arrives with a force that is not complicated at all. You walk the rest of the way home. Your apartment is the same as you left it. The kitchen table, the counter, the ultrasound photograph where you left it this morning, the pen, both of them there in the kitchen light. You stand in the doorway for a moment just looking at them, these two objects that have been accumulating meaning in your kitchen without your permission. The pen she left behind like a thread, the photograph she passed to you with her fingerprints already on it. You sit down at the table, you look at the photograph for a long time. The small gray form at the center of the dark field, barely legible, carrying a heartbeat. The image is still slightly warm in your imagination, even though it has been on your counter for weeks now, and is, in fact, room temperature. You pick it up, you turn it over, you pick up the pen, you write her name on the back of the photograph, not because she asked you to, not because you are surrendering to anything. Because it is true, which is the only reason you have ever needed to make anything permanent. The pen moves smoothly, the way good pens do, heavier than they look. You set it back on the counter when you're done. The photograph goes face up on the table, her name pressing into the wood below, the small heartbeat facing the ceiling. You will call her in the morning. Both of you know this. The knowing does not need to be confirmed. You sit in the quiet of your apartment and the city makes its nighttime sounds, and the photograph is on the table and there is nothing left to figure out. There is no word for loving someone who decided on you before you decided on yourself, who saw the shape of what you'd become and moved toward it with both hands. But every person who has ever been truly known by another person, for better or worse, feels this. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.